Sheppard. Let her in, and then we'll probably get going. All right, it's 7:02, folks, so we'll go ahead and we'll get the ball rolling here. Welcome to tonight's deep dive. We're going to be talking about migrating geese tonight, which is the talk's being led by Laurie Sheppard. In case you don't know Laurie, please welcome her. Laurie is a certified Texas Master Naturalist, longtime volunteer at Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge. While known for her butterfly work, tonight Laurie will spotlight migrating geese, sharing insights into their seasonal patterns, behaviors, and the role Hagerman plays in their journey through Grayson County. So have at it, Laurie. It's all yours.
Okay. I was initially asked to give a talk on snow geese, but when I looked at doing that, I thought they aren't the only geese that we have at Hagerman, so I decided to do it on the Seasons of Geese. Any of the geese that I talk about tonight are also in Collin County, or at least pass through, but I'm not as familiar with Collin County. So if you know of a place where people can see these geese, put your comments in the chat and help out your fellow master naturalists. The first one I'm going to talk about is the greater white-fronted goose. The reason why I'm starting with October, and October is when we first start to see the greater white-fronted. They'll pass through, stay for a few days on their way, but they're heading south from here. They don't usually spend the entire winter with us. We've had 2 or 3 groups that have gone by, and I just went tonight, and there were 2 at the refuge today. So the best time, the peak time to find them is early October through late November, but they also come back again in the spring. In 2024, there was an early group that came during September, and they stayed over for a few days and moved on, but usually it's October and November. This is the range map for those greater white-fronted geese. They breed up around the Arctic Circle, and the majority of them do come down the Central Flyway and into Grayson County and through, and they winter down around the coast, down into Central America. I've used range maps from audubon.org for all of these geese that I'm going to talk about. You'll see slightly different ones if you go to other sources like Cornell, but they're all pretty much the same. Most of the geese I talk about tonight breed up in the Arctic Circle in some area and come down through the Central Flyway and other flyways to get to their wintering grounds. The greater white-fronted goose gets its name from the white face patch above its short, thick bill. You'll find that they're pretty heavy. They're stocky geese, medium-sized, weigh about 4 to 7 pounds. If you look at the bellies on these geese that are in flight, you'll see dark patches, and hunters often call them a speckle belly because of that. All of the geese I talk about tonight will be members of the Anseriformes, and the family of, and I'm going to pronounce it badly, Anatidae, which are the ducks, geese, and waterfowl. Family bonds are strong in greater white-fronted geese. They'll travel together in family units. Strangely enough, a chick from one brood may stay with the parents through the whole next breeding season. They may stay together as parent and sibling, traveling together lifelong. The oldest recorded greater white-fronted goose was at least 25 years and 6 months old when it was found in Louisiana. When these get frightened up, they may swirl up into the air in kind of a chaotic move, but they may circle around and come back down. And they have an interesting flight in that they kind of teeter back and forth as they're coming down like a falling leaf. During migration, they are long distance daytime migrants, and they often return to the same breeding area year after year. They also pass through and go to the same wintering areas. So we may see the same geese year after year, but who would know because they all look alike. They generally fly together in a single line or in a V formation when they're migrating, but when they get disturbed, you might see them in a chaotic swirl. Greater and lesser snow goose. Who knew there was a greater and a lesser, but I'll talk about that in a second. The earliest sighting is the second week in October, but that's not every year. Just today, the first 3 geese arrived. So 3 snow geese. They will become common within the next couple of weeks. And we have plenty of wheat for them, so they'll do just fine. Their numbers will fluctuate over the winter. They begin to decline significantly by the 4th week in March. The fluctuation is mostly because of food availability and just being able to find what they need for the winter. A few individuals have been documented through early May, but these are probably weak birds that couldn't make the flight, and they probably do not survive much beyond then. I don't think any of the late geese actually do migrate. I think they become food for something larger. Like the greater white-fronted geese, the snow geese breed up in the Arctic Circle. I'm going to try with my pointer. The ones that breed around this area that I'm showing in the upper right of Canada actually are the greater snow geese. And they will migrate down the Atlantic flyway and winter along the Atlantic coast. The lesser are the more predominant one, and they breed further east in Canada, and they may go down the central flyway and come and spend the winter with us, or they may even go down through the Rocky Mountains and winter in California. There are 2 recognized subspecies of snow geese. As I said, the greater snow goose, which is named for where it spends its winter, Atlantica, and the lesser snow goose, which is the more common, and those are the ones that we have. They're widely distributed and are abundant across most of Central and Western North America. There are 2 color morphs, but those are only present in the lesser snow goose. The greater, they're all white. The dark morph is controlled by a single gene. So if you have a white snow goose and that mates with another white snow goose, all of their offspring will be white. If you have a dark morph whose both parents were dark morph, and they mate with a white snow goose, they will have all dark morph offspring. If you have 2 random dark morphs that mate, chances are somewhere in their background they have a white morph, and you'll have an occasional white, but most of them will be the dark. And we call the dark morph the blue goose. That is the symbol for the Fish and Wildlife Service. Snow geese are typically 4 to 7 pounds and 27 to 33 inches. They're a pretty good sized goose. And the oldest one on record was 30 years and 8 months when it was harvested. All the geese I talk about tonight can be hunted and are hunted in various places. Not at the refuge, though. The lesser snow goose, which is the one we have, is not a solitary traveler. You'll see small flocks of a couple dozen to huge flocks of a couple 100,000. Not usually where we are. We usually don't see more than a few hundred to a few thousand. Um, and the most we normally get at the refuge at any given time is probably 10 to 12,000, but that is pretty impressive when they're all there. They are strong, steady flyers with even wing beats. Family groups often forage together on the wintering grounds. We plant winter wheat for them, and they will eat the wheat itself, but they'll also dig up the roots, and they'll get into the marshes and dig tubers. So they have plenty of food sources where we are. They're always alert to threats and predators. If you've been to the refuge and you're driving along and you see them all out in the field, you'll see them all move back from the field. And the ones on the edges will be making little noises to warn everyone, move back, move back. If they see a strong threat, maybe somebody has a dog that they aren't controlling and the dog goes out into the field and threatens the geese, you'll hear an even sharper call, and the whole flock may take flight all at once. They usually stay overnight together. There's safety in numbers. If you're out on the water and you're all grouped together, you're probably not going to be threatened by a bobcat or a coyote. And you'll always hear them communicating with each other, whether they're on land or in the air. Sometimes it's just little small coos, sometimes it's warning calls. Juvenile geese can often be identified by the color of their feathers. The one on the left on the screen is a juvenile white morph snow goose, and they tend to be pretty gray. The dark morph tends to be a darker brown, and their heads will be all brown. I'll show you a picture of one later in the presentation. Sometimes you see snow geese that have orange faces. Those are not actually orange feathers. That's staining from iron oxide that is in the marshes where they're digging for food in the wintering grounds. This is just a warning to everyone. Snow goose digestion is very rapid. If you've ever heard the expression like grass through a goose, this is what they're talking about. Food passes through very quickly and only mildly digested sometimes. They have 6 to 18 droppings an hour, and it's highest when they're grubbing around in the fields for rhizomes because their high fiber diet and mixed with mud makes it go through even quicker. So I always tell visitors to the refuge that they want to be when a flock of snow geese takes flight from the fields, you don't want to be underneath. So a word to the wise. I can tell you from experience that when they fly across and your car is underneath, you might have a softball-sized big green splat on your windshield that will take quite a bit to clean off. Things to watch for when you're out on the refuge. If you're driving around on the roads and you hear a flurry of alarm calls and you see a cloud of white geese taking off from the lake, take a look at the sky over them and look for a bald eagle. You might see one. That's often when they take off from the lake, that's often the reason that they see a threat from above and they figure if they're scattering around in chaos, they're safer. Also watch for mixed flocks of geese. You'll see both snows and rosses traveling together. And in spring and fall, you might see greater white-fronted geese mixed in. If you look at this picture on the right, these three at this end are greater white-fronted geese. All of these are snows or rosses. And the ones down at the bottom are all the greater white-fronted again. They tend to be together but not intermingled when they're feeding. Ross's geese are out there at the same time as the snow geese. They arrive about the same time. Although early in the season, it seems like we see more Rosses than Snows in the early migrants, and then that balance shifts towards the end of the season. It does appear that Rosses leave a little earlier than Snow Geese. I looked at the bar charts on eBird, and it shows fewer individuals compared to Snow Geese by mid-March, and there are no documented sightings after mid-April. It's important to be able to tell a snow goose from a Ross's goose, and that's always a challenge for people. But here's a little primer for you. If you look on the left, the snow goose is larger. It's when they're side by side, it's obvious, and I'll show you some pictures that show that. It has a flatter head with a longer, more slender neck, and the bill length is longer. If you look at from the top of the head down to the tip of the bill, you can see it's almost flat on a snow goose. And look between the two mandibles, and you'll see a dark edge to both the upper and lower mandible, which make it look like he's wearing black lipstick. The books will call this a grin patch, but to me, it's black lipstick. The Ross's goose on the right is noticeably smaller in the flock. It's got a rounded head. If you notice I'll go back. If you notice there, the forehead is steep, and you can see a little bit of grayish, bluish bumps on the base of the bill. The bill is shorter. It doesn't have that black line between the upper and lower mandible. When they're together, they're pretty easy to tell apart. In flight, you can see how much smaller the snow goose is to the Ross's goose. It's a good 6 to 8 inches shorter. You can tell the bill length if they're running parallel to you, and you can see the grin patch on the snow goose, and you can actually see the base of the Ross's goose's bill, the blue-gray bumps. When they're in the lake, again, you can see the difference in the size. You can see the difference in the head shape, the roundness of the head, and the base of the bill or the grin patch. So a little more about Rosses. Again, they breed up in the Arctic Circle, but you notice they have a much smaller breeding territory. Some do go out west and winter over in California, but a lot of them do come down through the Central Flyway and winter in Texas and other places nearby. Snow and Ross's geese numbers are increasing dramatically, and it's due to climate change. The warming in the Arctic breeding grounds has caused reduced snow cover and increased plant growth, which with more food, they have more babies. The larger breeding area also results in more contact between Snow's and Ross's geese. Snow geese or Ross's geese are increasingly hybridizing with the lesser snow goose. And that's going to make them even more difficult to tell apart. Who knows what size they're going to be and what their bill characteristics will be. Ross's geese tend to form long-term monogamous pair bonds, and they stay together for a long time. They seem to mate on their way north because they arrive in the breeding grounds ready to lay fertile eggs. And some males are promiscuous and attempt to mate with more than one female. After nesting, the Ross's geese move to traditional molting areas, and they become flightless for several weeks before they migrate southward. So they have an interim step on their way south. A Ross's goose can often be picked out in a large flock of snow geese who have been digging in the marshes because they'll have an immaculate white head. They forage for surface plants rather than digging for tubers in the Arctic marshes, so they aren't stained with the iron oxide. Something we'll never see because it's only on the breeding grounds. Their young can come in two different colors, downy yellow or gray. The two forms look identical once their adult feathers come in. The oldest known Ross goose was a female and was at least 22 years and 6 months old when she was taken by a hunter. Populations of Arctic nesting geese have changed the plant communities in places where they nest. The fragile tundra is getting eaten away, and that's causing a concern with other things that nest in the tundra. Environmentalists are very concerned. You can even see those bare patches visible from space. Again, Ross's geese eat plant matter and rarely insects. They forage while they're standing or walking slowly, and you'll see this on the refuge where they graze by picking short shoots, seeds, and grains, while the snow geese are frequently digging into the ground itself. In winter, they use wetlands, grasslands, and agricultural fields during the day and roost overnight in wetlands, grasses, and reservoirs. Lake Texoma is a perfect spot for them, and they'll nest side by side, intermingled with the snow geese. Like the snow goose, they may have a darker phase, but it's very rare. I know Jack Childs manages to find one every year, but I've never found one. With all the geese, if you're looking at a field of 3,000 geese and there's one Ross's goose that is a dark morph, it's pretty hard to find. They're only 2.3 to 3.4 pounds and about 24 inches in length. Their wingspan is less than 4 feet. Another goose that we have, but in very small numbers, extremely small numbers, is the cackling goose. They're here occasionally between late October and early April. All seem to be migratory. We've never seen one during the summer months. And they probably travel south with either a group of Canada geese, or in the past 3 to 4 years, we've seen one or two that are traveling and feeding among the white geese. So you never know. If you see a Canada goose in an odd place, it pays to look carefully. I'll tell you what to look for in just a minute. Cackling goose do breed in the same locations. They winter in the same locations. They travel the central flyway like the other geese. They're typically about 25 inches long, so about the size of a Ross's goose, and weigh 3 to 5 pounds. So they might be a little heavier than a Ross's goose, while only being about the same size. The Canada geese are highly variable, and there were 11 different recognized Canada goose subspecies. And in 2004, they separated out the 4 smallest and split them out as its own species, the cackling goose. But cackling geese have 4 different subspecies. We only see one of them. They may hybridize with Canada geese, which makes ID challenging. And the oldest recorded cackling goose was a male, at least 22 years, 8 months, when shot in Oregon in 2010. They're smaller and more delicate than a Canada goose. They have a shorter bill. If you notice, these geese have very short bills. They have short, stubby necks. Be careful, though, because Canada geese sometimes draw their neck down. And this one doesn't look so short in relation to the body, but it's because it's stretched way out. So you can't always go by the the length of the neck, but you want to look for a more rounded head with a steeper forehead and a smaller bill to be able to tell that it's a cackling goose. They have a higher pitched call than a Canada goose, sometimes making a cackling sound, which is how they get their name. They'll often flock with other goose species. We do find individuals within groups of Snow's and Ross's geese and within groups of Canada geese. Earlier, I said that you could always tell a dark morph snow goose. If you look at this bird right here, this looks like it's probably a juvenile dark morph. It has the full dark head. It has the grin patch that you can just see. They often do have an eye ring that appears. Eventually, their heads will get white and only their body will have the dark morph colors. Canada geese can be found in the area year-round. Some migrate, some do not. You notice, in contrast to the cackling goose, how the slope of the head is very narrow slope, I guess you'd call it, kind of a ski jump look. A longer bill than the cackling goose, a bigger, stockier body, a longer neck. Their numbers fluctuate significantly on and around the refuge because in winter we have migratory ones that join our resident ones. A certain number of Canada geese breed in our area. Some of the range maps don't seem to show that there's any breeding in Texas and Oklahoma, but I can assure you there is. They have a very broad range. They're all over Canada, in breeding all over Canada. Probably many of them are breeding down in the United States now, and only a few are strictly migratory and only in Texas in winter. They're very large. They're 2.5 to 3.5 feet and weigh almost 20 pounds. Their wingspan is 5 feet. If they decide they're unhappy with you and they come at you with their wings open, it's significant. Some migratory populations are not going as far south in the winter as they used to, and some don't migrate at all. We do have a resident population at Hagerman. This is thought to be a result of farming methods that make adequate food sources available in different places year-round. The Canada goose in the early 1900s was almost extinct, and so they put some protections on them. But they've been so successful that the species is now considered a nuisance in many areas. Some people call them golf course birds. The oldest known wild Canada goose was a female and who was 33 years, 3 months at least when she was harvested. The original mission of Hagerman National Wildlife Refuge was to create a protected area to support the wintering Canada geese. The mission now more broadly encompasses all migratory waterfowl. We have them here year-round, and I thought you might enjoy a few pictures of the cute little goslings. And I was always very taken by this picture that I got of one. It's like, oh, just like Dad. Very infrequently, we see a hybrid goose. Hard to tell what their lineage is, but presumably the result of a Canada goose mating with a domestic goose. I posted one in May, and INET listed it as a swan goose crossed with a Canada goose. Swan goose is an Asian goose, an all-white Asian goose that is the progenitor of many of the yard geese that people have, those domestic white geese that you see in a lot of yards. I personally have seen one on at least 3 occasions over the past 8 years, and it's probably the same one. It's hard to tell. There aren't enough distinct markings on it, but given the lifespan of a Canada goose, it probably is the same one. This picture was taken during Winter Storm Uri when the lake was completely frozen and it was out on the lake. One of the issues that we combat all the time at the refuge is trying to keep down harassment of the visiting geese. Not only is it bad for the geese, it's also not legal. We find that, people may not understand what they're doing. Who does it? Photographers who want a better picture, families who have little kids who think it's fun to run into the fields and watch the geese fly, people who have pets that they don't restrain, well-meaning people who want to feed the geese. If you look at this person who's walking across the field, in her hand, she has a full loaf of white bread, one of the worst things you can give to waterfowl. Some people have cell phones and they want to get a selfie with all those geese. So they keep trying to get closer and closer, and the geese keep trying to get further and further away. People speed on the refuge. If you've been there, you know that. And sometimes they don't pay attention to whether the geese are crossing the road at the time. Fishermen want them cleared away from the area they want to fish at. Boats are not allowed on inside the waters over the winter, but every year you see one or two that come in and try to get in and around all the geese. As far as planting geese, we were pretty concerned this year, planting wheat for the geese. We were concerned this year because Lake Texoma experienced its fourth worst flood ever in May of 2025. Most of the fields that feed the geese were underwater, and government funding has been reducing every year, and this year is no exception. It's going down even more. Federal staff reductions. When the new administration came in and they offered a buyout to federal workers, 3 out of the 7 staff at the refuge took the buyout, and they are not going to be replaced. All in all, it just didn't look good for a wheat crop. So volunteers, Brian Clark, who is a Blackland Prairie Master Naturalist, created the Adopt a Goose program, where people could symbolically adopt a single goose and feed it for the season for $20, or individuals or companies, corporations could purchase enough seed to seed an entire field. We had a lot of volunteers who picked up the slack on labor. So from the flooding in May, they did a lot of cleanup in July, because when water floods the refuge, it drops dead trees everywhere. They disked and plowed the fields, bought all the seed, loaded it into hoppers where they could punch seed into the ground. Generous donors gave enough to plant 242 acres of winter wheat. The remaining staff and the volunteers cleared the debris, plowed and disked the land, and loaded the equipment and planted the fields in time for the grass to start to grow, the wheat to start to grow before the first white geese arrive. We always worry whether there will be enough rain. You have to have rain at the right time to germinate the seeds. And then there has to be enough rain for them to grow. Last year, the wheat sprouted and a dry spell caused some of it to burn up in the fall sun. This year, rain on October 18th probably saved the donated wheat. This is what it looked like shortly after the rains, and it's even better now. A week and a half later, with sunshine and a couple more rainstorms, the wheat is looking very good on most of our fields. And that is all I have. And are there any questions for me? Am I still
Muted
out
myself
there?
again. Yeah. You're gonna have to turn your sound off. Laurie, we have just a couple of questions. Let me in chat.
Okay.
Barbara asked, what was the name of the website where you got your information at the very beginning when you talked about where you got your information? What was the name of the website you referred to?
Audubon.org was where I got the range maps, but you can also find a lot of information. Probably the best information is on the Cornell site, which is allaboutbirds.org. All one word, allaboutbirds.org.
Awesome. Okay. And then the other question that we had in chat was, do you know how many snow geese come to the Bosque del Apache Wildlife Refuge in New Mexico compared to the number at Hagerman?
Probably 10 times more.
Oh, okay. Way more.
Yeah. I should have said, when they talk about the flocks of hundreds of thousands, Bosque del Apache routinely gets 120,000 geese, white geese,
Oh,
along with sandhill cranes. It's a wonderful place to visit if you can do it. I went once and gee, there was a freak snowstorm and the refuge was closed. I was pretty
gosh.
frustrated.
Oh gosh. Okay. Somebody asked, do you ever see sandhill cranes at Hagerman?
Yes, but very infrequently. Usually we see them when they're on their way back north. Occasionally it's a flyover and you just have to be lucky. You have to be listening and hear them. This past, I guess must have been March, maybe April. I think it was March. We had a group of 17 that overnighted on the refuge.
Oh,
And we tried to
very
keep it
cool.
very quiet. And a few of us got out to see them early in the morning, but someone from Dallas, photographers, decided they had to get too close. If the word gets out, people scare them away. They are the most skittish birds you could ever see. They won't
Are
let you
they?
anywhere near them when they're overnighting.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I would not have thought we would see them at Hagerman at all. That's pretty cool.
It's a rare occurrence, and
Uh-huh.
you're lucky if you do. I have twice. I saw them when they overnighted this year, and probably 3 years ago, I was out late in the afternoon and saw a flock fly over. Probably 50 of them flew over.
Oh my gosh.
I was so excited.
I bet.
The other thing we very occasionally get, I think twice in the 15 years I've been going to the refuge, we've had whooping cranes overnight on the refuge.
Really?
Yes. I think it was 3 years ago, maybe. They overnighted, and it happened to be the first weekend in November. No, might have been the spring one. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was the first Saturday of the month, the first Friday night of the month that they overnighted. So all the people who came for our little sit on Saturday morning, we'd go in shifts to go and see them.
Oh, wow. That must have been so cool.
It was a family group of three, the
Wow.
mom, dad, and one colt.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Are there ducks there yet? Pintails, canvasbacks, teals, that sort of thing?
Diving ducks have not arrived. Lots of green-winged teal. The blue-winged teal are going south. There's pintails, shovelers. There are lots of gadwall today. I've seen a couple of groups of redheads go through. We've got coots. There's a bunch of mallards still around. Oh, quite a few American widgeon.
Mm.
So yeah, they're coming in today.
They are
I saw
arriving.
more today. I had heard that there were snow geese at the refuge. I got a rare bird alert on something else, and on that person's eBird list, he listed 3 snow geese. So I ran out to the refuge quick right before this. I saw 2 greater white-fronted and 3 snow geese there. But I also saw more ducks than have been there yet. So they're coming in quickly.
Okay, they're coming. Okay, we have a couple more questions. Kathy asked, wondering about the possibility of converting from traditional disc and planter to a no-till approach to conserve the soil.
I can't comment on that. I
Okay.
really don't know.
Okay. And then, are there many white pelicans at Hagerman yet?
Yes and no. Yes, there have been. 2 days ago, I saw 700.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
Yeah. Today, with the wind, they got out. Yesterday was wet. We did our regular weekly bird count. It was cold and wet in the morning. By afternoon, the sun came out. When the sun came out, the thermals started and the geese took off, or the pelicans took off. I imagine there will be more, and there are some there now, but there's fewer than there were earlier in the week. That's the best I can say for right now.
Okay.
Any of these, they come in waves. It's hard to say from one day to the next how many you're going to have.
Really cool. Interesting. Okay, that is all the questions I have. If anybody else has a question, if you just want to unmute and ask it yourself, you're welcome to do that. And if not, I think that's it.
I have a
That was
question.
awesome. Oh,
I
did
have a
somebody have one?
question.
Okay,
Go
go ahead,
ahead.
Yeah. How do you count 700 pelicans?
Deb. Very quickly.
Yeah. There's about 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. Okay, now we're up to 50, so I can count blocks of 50. You just kind of try to, especially with pelicans, it's hard because they're deep. You know, one line might have 10 pelicans in it. So it's more estimating based on volume and area.
Okay. Okay.
We did have one more question. Oh, a couple more. What butterflies are you seeing in the Hagerman garden this week?
Oh, it's been amazing. We've had a wonderful week. We had 2 Texan crescents, which was nice. I don't see those every year. Lots and lots of skippers. We've had Eufaula, snow, fiery, sachem, clouded. One more. What was the other one? I had a funereal dusky wing the other day. Lots and lots of monarchs. Some queens. We had stopped seeing queens and now we're seeing more. American lady, Gulf and variegated fritillaries. Sulfurs, we have cloudless orange, sleepy orange, little yellow, and dainty, and they're all there almost every day. Pipevine swallowtails have been coming through. We've seen a red spotted purple come through. It's been a wonderful week in the garden.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Thank you so much for getting